For decades, international relations with Iran has often been characterized by hostilities, sanctions, missiles, and nuclear weapons. As a core region of the international system, these relationships have always been about something so fundamental: who controls the Iranian state. For years, Western governments, particularly the United States, alongside allies like Israel, have pursued a long-term strategic objective: to prevent Iran from remaining under an authoritarian revolutionary system. And yet, today, a new development has dramatically shifted that conversation. After the long era of Ali Khamenei, Iran has appointed a new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. To understand why this moment matters, we need to first understand how power actually works inside Iran. Iran is not governed like a typical republic, although the country has many of the institutions like the presidency, a parliament, elections, all which could be associated with democratic systems. But beneath those structures lies a very different foundation of authority: the Iranian doctrine of velayat-e-faqih, the guardianship of the Islamic jurist. Under this model, the ultimate authority does not rest with voters, it rests with a single figure: the supreme leader, who oversees the armed forces, shapes the judiciary, and commands the powerful security institutions that safeguard the state. Even elected officials operate within boundaries defined by this supreme leader. For 36 years, that authority rested with one man, Ali Khamenei, until his death on February 28, 2026, following a series of joint attacks by USA and Israel. And now, the rise of Mojtaba Khamenei marks something unprecedented in the history of the Islamic Republic and raises new questions that needs immediate answers. Foremost, for the first time since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, power appears to be passing within the same family. This is a development that raises deeply uncomfortable questions to the Iranian republican system that was created to overthrow the old monarchy. As the Islamic Republic began to fall back to the very dynastic rule it once promised to destroy. And on the international system, what does this mean beyond Iranian borders and their efforts to reshape power balances across the Middle East? What does this mean for international alliances, especially for a state that has been openly resistant to Western influence while positioning itself as a revolutionary alternative to the liberal international order? Has the United States just lost the war and their strategic struggle over Iran's future? This question arises bearing in mind the various Western attempts to contain and weaken the Iran state through the combinations of economic sanctions designed to strain the Iranian economy, diplomatic isolation aimed at limiting Iran's international influence, military deterrence intended to constrain its regional ambitions, and at times, quiet encouragement of reform movements inside the country. What happens next when, rather than weakening under decades of pressure, the political system created after the revolution is now preparing to consolidate itself for another generation through the rise of Mojtaba Khamenei? At first glance, it may be tempting to interpret this moment as a clear strategic defeat for the United States. Because after decades of sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and mounting geopolitical pressure, the political system inside Iran has managed to do something so significant. It has managed a leadership transition. Throughout modern political history, authoritarian systems are often most vulnerable during moments of succession, because when long-standing leaders disappear, the systems built around them frequently fracture, leading to power struggles. So when Ali Khamenei was gone, the expectations was that the political order may begins to unravel. But at least for now, rather than descending into visible fragmentation, the system has moved quickly to maintain continuity through the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei. It has now begun to strike the Western rivals with the very weapon they had hoped to pull them down. For one thing is certain now: if Mojtaba Khamenei ultimately succeeds in consolidating his authority in the state, Iran would be sending a powerful signal to the international community. It would be proof that the Islamic Republic is not merely dependent on the authority of one leader, but bears institutions capable of reproducing the system itself. The political order established after the 1979 revolution may be far more resilient than what many Western forces once believed. Yet this resilience does not necessarily mean victory. because this survival alone does not eliminate the pressures facing Iran. Mojtaba must still resolve the issues within and those arising from the international system that continue to challenge it. If anything, Iran, under her new leadership, must brace herself for a more intense level of scrutiny against them, especially if the transition is widely perceived as hereditary. Critics may begin to frame the Islamic Republic in a very different light. A system that once defined itself as a revolutionary alternative to monarchy could now be accused of evolving into something closer to such dynastic rule. This could trigger tangible geopolitical consequences and more intensified pressures in the form of tighter economic sanctions, stronger diplomatic campaigns to isolate Tehran, more intense scrutiny of Iran's nuclear programs, and expanded regional containment strategies aimed at limiting Iran's influence across the Middle East. Again, the events that have greeted the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei have not shown any glimpse of better tidings. US President Donald Trump has come out openly against the appointment and had insisted on playing a role in whoever will succeed as the new leader. In this light, the new beginning has so much tendency of becoming a new phase of an ongoing rivalry. Beyond the international reactions, this appointment also sends a powerful message inside Iran itself. First, the good news is that the appointment may resonate well with the elite group, especially the influential Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a powerful military and security network tasked with protecting the revolutionary state. Reports suggest that Mojtaba Khamenei wields significant influence within the group. This may mean renewed purpose and control for the Guard Corps. It reassures the country's security institutions that the ideological foundation of the Islamic Republic still remains intact. The political system created after the 1979 revolution is not about to be dismantled. It signals that, at least for now, the structure of power inside Iran is unlikely to undergo rapid transformation. But for many Iranians, especially recent protesters who hoped that a leadership transition might open the door to political reforms, this moment suggests something very different. Iran is not turning to any drastic change. Instead, it will be reinforcing the very system that already exists. Regrettably, beyond the political calculations in Tehran and Washington, the rise of Mojtaba Khamenei raises a much bigger question. What does this moment mean for the wider international system? Because the crisis surrounding Iran may never have been confined to one country or even one region. Iran sits at the heart of one of the most strategically sensitive regions of the global economy. The Middle East remains a critical artery of the world's energy supply, and any prolonged instability here has the potential to ripple far beyond regional politics. The escalating tensions between Iran, the United States, and our allies like Israel is already beginning to affect global oil markets, disrupt trade routes, and deepen uncertainty across international peace. Stakeholders are already questioning attacks targeted at oil ships, routes, and refinery. Sadly, history has shown that when conflicts involving major regional powers intensifies, the consequences is always felt globally. These new developments could therefore reshape the global economy and the fragile balance of international peace. This is why what happens next in Iran will matter far beyond its borders. So while we ask who may be the victors and who the victims in this ongoing struggle, we must also recognize ourselves as part of this uncomfortable reality. We cannot just be watching from the sidelines. We must realize that each ripple from Tehran has the potential to touch us all, economically, politically, and even in our day-to-day lives. If these developments continue to escalate, the consequences may not remain confined to borders or capitals. And that is why understanding it matters, because the stakes are far bigger than one nation alone.